Welcome to Show Chroma Celebs. I'm Rose, bringing you the latest shocking updates on Sister Wives. Unexpected twists, emotional moments, and unbelievable drama. Stay tuned till the end. Meri Brown breaks her silence. Why she refuses to take the blame for her fallout with Robyn. In a powerful and unflinching revelation that has captivated fans of TLC's long-running reality series Sister Wives, Meri Brown has finally opened up about the emotional unraveling of her once close relationship with Robyn Brown. Speaking publicly with the calm resolve of a woman who has endured over a decade in a deeply complex plural marriage, Meri is no longer willing to shoulder blame for a dynamic that she believes was shaped by silence, distance, and choices made by others just as much as by her. Her declaration doesn't come in anger, but in a tone of deep reflection, part exhaustion, part liberation, as she begins to reshape her life following the collapse of the Brown family's original structure. The journey that led to this fractured friendship is steeped in the unique framework of a plural marriage, where each relationship is tightly interwoven with the others and where the emotional weight of shared time, resources, and affections can both bond and break individuals. Meri, the first wife of Kody Brown and once the matriarchal cornerstone of the sprawling polygamous family, had a long and often painful arc on the show, marked by loneliness, an emotional catfishing scandal, and her gradual drift from Kody. Still, for many years, she appeared to have a strong connection with Robyn, the youngest of Kody's wives, who joined the family last and was often seen as a key player in its evolving dynamic. Their bond seemed unshakable to outsiders, a kind of alliance forged in the midst of family chaos and shifting loyalties. But now, as Meri reveals in recent interviews and social media reflections, that closeness has dissolved. The woman who once called Robyn a sister and a friend now speaks from a distance, noting that the falling out didn't happen all at once but was the result of a slow and steady unraveling that neither of them seemed willing to stop. She refuses to take the fall for a rupture she believes was mutual and says it's time the truth be seen not through the distorted lens of fan assumptions or reality show editing, but in the full complexity of lived experience. Meri describes her relationship with Robyn as once meaningful and deeply personal, explaining that for years they supported each other during the family's most challenging transitions. Whether dealing with interpersonal struggles between other wives, raising children together, or navigating the shifting dynamics with Kody, they had for a time what Meri believed was an authentic and valuable connection. But as Kody's marriage to Meri disintegrated and Robyn remained firmly entrenched as his primary partner, some would say his only emotional partner, Meri found herself more isolated than ever. She claims that what hurt most wasn't necessarily the romantic dissolution with Kody but the loss of sisterhood with Robyn, a relationship she had thought would endure even as other ties were fraying. The beginning of the breakdown, according to Meri, was less about a single fight or betrayal and more about the absence of communication when it mattered most. She recalls moments of reaching out, of trying to bridge emotional gaps, of extending invitations to reconnect, only to be met with silence or vague platitudes. Over time, those missed chances turned into patterns, and the emotional intimacy they once shared began to slip away. She makes it clear that while she might have misstepped or failed to communicate perfectly, she was not the only one who withdrew or let the space between them widen. For Meri, one of the most frustrating aspects of the fallout has been the perception that she was the problem, that her jealousy, her hurt, or her choices made the relationship with Robyn untenable. She pushes back against that narrative, saying that it is not only unfair but deeply inaccurate. She explains that in a plural marriage, jealousy is not a crime but a reality, and the real issue isn't the presence of those feelings but how they are handled. Meri insists that she tried repeatedly to express her needs and concerns constructively and to ask for support from Robyn, particularly during the emotionally barren years when Kody had all but withdrawn from their marriage. But instead of receiving compassion, she says she was met with increasing coldness and distance, not just from Kody but from Robyn as well. What stands out in Meri's account is not bitterness but clarity. She does not speak as someone clinging to a past hurt or seeking revenge. Rather, she sounds like someone who has sat with her pain long enough to understand its origins and to separate what she can control from what she cannot. She speaks about forgiveness, not the kind that comes with forgetting, but the kind that comes with choosing peace over resentment. Meri says she holds no ill will toward Robyn, even if they never mend their relationship. What she wants, she says, is to be understood, to have her truth recognized after years of feeling sidelined and misunderstood, not just by her family but by a public that too often turned her into a caricature. In recent episodes of Sister Wives, fans watched as Meri began to carve out a new identity separate from the family that once defined her. She has invested her time in her business ventures, embraced her independence, and most recently, relocated to a new home in Utah. The symbolism of this move is not lost on Meri or her followers. It marks the physical and emotional separation from a life that no longer serves her. And while she does not rule out the possibility of reconciliation with Robyn, she makes it clear that it would require accountability and effort on both sides. She is done chasing relationships that no longer nurture her spirit. The broader context of Meri and Robyn's rift is tied deeply to the slow but dramatic unraveling of the Brown family as a whole. With Christine and Yanel having also left Kody, and with tensions running high between the remaining members, the dream of a cohesive plural family has all but disappeared. Robyn, who once lamented not having strong relationships with her sister wives, now stands alone as Kody's only remaining partner, a reality that she herself has admitted is deeply saddening. Meri's decision to speak out, then, is not an attack but a necessary reclaiming of her voice in a story that has often been told without her input. Meri's reflections also raise important questions about the toll of polygamy, not in an abstract or moral sense, but in the very real emotional costs it extracts from those who live it. She doesn't condemn the lifestyle outright, but she is candid about the unique challenges it presents, especially when love, communication, and emotional reciprocity are unevenly distributed. Her story is, in many ways, a cautionary tale not just about polygamy, but about any relationship where needs are unmet and where people feel invisible within the very structures meant to support them. The broader context of Meri and Robyn's rift is tied deeply to the slow but dramatic unraveling of the Brown family as a whole. With Christine and Yanel having also left Kody, and with tensions running high between the remaining members, the dream of a cohesive plural family has all but disappeared. Robyn, who once lamented not having strong relationships with her sister wives, now stands alone as Kody's only remaining partner, a reality that she herself has admitted is deeply saddening. Meri's decision to speak out, then, is not an attack but a necessary reclaiming of her voice in a story that has often been told without her input. Meri's reflections also raise important questions about the toll of polygamy, not in an abstract or moral sense, but in the very real emotional costs it extracts from those who live it. She doesn't condemn the lifestyle outright, but she is candid about the unique challenges it presents, especially when love, communication, and emotional reciprocity are unevenly distributed. Her story is, in many ways, a cautionary tale not just about polygamy, but about any relationship where needs are unmet and where people feel invisible within the very structures meant to support them. Fans of the show have long speculated about the state of Meri's relationships, and her new openness provides both confirmation and context. Social media reactions have been mixed, with some expressing support and admiration for her candor, while others remain skeptical or critical. But Meri seems unbothered by the noise. She says she has spent too many years trying to please others, trying to hold together a life that was falling apart, and now she is finally ready to live for herself, not in a selfish way but in a healthy, self-respecting way. As Meri continues this new chapter of her life, one thing is clear: she is no longer willing to be the scapegoat in a story that has always been more complex than viewers were led to believe. Her refusal to take full blame for her falling out with Robyn is not an attempt to deflect responsibility but a declaration of shared humanity. In her eyes, relationships fail not because one person is flawed, but because two people stop trying. And now, as she moves forward, she carries with her not regret but resolution, a sense that her story is far from over and that she alone gets to write the next chapter. Christine Brown, once known as the third wife in a high-profile plural marriage that captivated millions through the TLC series Sister Wives, is no longer hiding behind carefully curated smiles and rehearsed scenes. With a heart laid bare and a voice unflinchingly honest, Christine has begun to talk about the emotional and physical isolation that defined her final years with Kody Brown. Her revelations, emerging slowly over months of interviews and televised moments of vulnerability, have painted a picture of a woman who endured more than she revealed at the time, a woman who now seeks to own her truth without shame or fear of judgment. What she calls a sad and broken sex life was more than just a romantic void. It was a symbol of a deeper, more painful realization that the marriage she had fought to preserve was dying, not in one loud collapse, but in 1,000 quiet moments of neglect. Christine's departure from the Brown family shocked many, but for those who had watched closely, the signs were there. A subtle tension in her body language when Kody spoke. A flicker of pain in her eyes when Robyn, the youngest wife, was favored. A long silence when asked about affection. Over time, those quiet clues built into a story that Christine is now unspooling in full. Her words are not angry. They are reflective, measured, but laced with the unmistakable ache of a woman who gave too much for too long and finally reached the end of herself. Speaking candidly about her physical relationship with Kody, Christine said it had become rare, distant, and hollow. There were times, she admits, when they might be intimate only a few times a year. In a marriage, especially in one where emotional intimacy is already strained by the complexities of plural living, such a gap can become a chasm. And it did. Christine didn't just feel unwanted, she felt invisible. She says it plainly now, but at the time, the hurt was laid under years of trying to convince herself that her needs weren't as important, that sacrificing her desire for affection was a necessary part of the plural marriage bargain. When Kody told her that he no longer wanted an intimate relationship with her, it was a breaking point. For years, Christine had tolerated a kind of emotional starvation, convincing herself that she had to put on a brave face for the sake of the family, the children, the cameras, and the faith that had built the foundation of their lives. But this moment of finality, of being told directly that the physical part of their marriage was over, was not something she could ignore. It was, in her words, a knife in the heart, because it validated the fears she had tried to silence for years. The rejection was no longer implied. It was spoken. And it gave her the clarity she needed. Packing Kody's things and asking him to stop sleeping in her bed was not an impulsive act of anger. It was an act of self-respect. It was the first step toward reclaiming her space, her body, her peace. Christine had been quietly disappearing in her own marriage, and this decision was her way of saying, I am still here. I still matter. Throughout the years, Christine had hoped for change. She had hoped Kody would see her again, not as a co-parent, not as a member of a television cast, but as a woman who still longed to be loved, touched, and cherished. That hope kept her in the marriage longer than she now believes she should have stayed. And what made it more painful was watching the clear emotional and physical intimacy that Kody shared with Robyn. While she does not blame Robyn for the fallout of their marriage, Christine can't deny that the favoritism was glaring. She felt it in family decisions, in the way Kody prioritized time, and in the subtle ways he withdrew from her emotionally. It wasn't just about sex. It was about not feeling chosen, about being placed on the periphery of a life she had built from the ground up. One of the hardest moments in their marriage came when their daughter Isabel needed surgery for scoliosis. The decision for Isabel to travel out of state for the procedure was not easy, and Christine made it with the full understanding of what it would require. But what she didn't anticipate was Kody's refusal to accompany them. Citing the risks of being away from his other families during the height of the pandemic, Kody chose to stay behind. Christine says that moment crystallized everything she had already begun to feel, that her family, her daughter, her needs, none of it was a priority to him anymore. She says that Isabel cried when she learned her father would not be there for her surgery, and Christine knew then that this was not just a broken marriage but a broken family unit. It was the final crack in the foundation. Even in the face of rejection and heartbreak, Christine remained committed to raising her children with grace and love. Her goal was never to villainize Kody in front of them. She wanted to be honest, but not bitter. And even now, she speaks with a kind of grace that comes from deep emotional work. She is not angry in the explosive way reality television often rewards. She is heartbroken, yes, but also healing. Since leaving the marriage and officially separating from Kody in 2021, Christine has been on a journey of rediscovery. She has since remarried, tying the knot with David Woolley in 2023, and by her own accounts, she has found a joy that she once thought was beyond her. Her new relationship has been described as warm, affectionate, and emotionally fulfilling, a stark contrast to the cold distance that marked her final years with Kody. With David, Christine says she feels seen and cherished in ways she never did in her former marriage. The transformation in her spirit is visible. Her posture is lighter, her smile more genuine, her voice more confident. Christine's story is not just about sex or the lack thereof. It is about what intimacy represents: connection, value, recognition, love. It's about the pain of being overlooked and the courage to walk away from a life that no longer aligns with one's sense of self-worth. She is careful not to condemn the concept of plural marriage entirely, acknowledging that it works for some, but makes it clear that it no longer worked for her. The structure that once provided community and spiritual grounding had become, in her case, a source of deep sadness and emotional neglect. Her decision to speak out is not just personal, it's cultural. In a society where women are often expected to endure silently, especially in religious or patriarchal frameworks, Christine's voice is a beacon to others who may feel trapped in relationships that no longer nourish them. She has spoken about the guilt she carried, the self-doubt she wrestled with, and the fear of walking away. But in the end, her desire for peace outweighed her fear of change. As Christine continues to share her story with honesty and vulnerability, she is finding that her journey resonates far beyond the confines of sister wives. Women across the country and even around the world have reached out to say they see themselves in her. They understand the feeling of being lost on someone's list, of giving and giving until there's nothing left, of waking up one day and realizing they want more. And now Christine is living proof that it's not too late. That choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. The full scope of her story, the years of quiet suffering and eventual awakening, cannot be summed up in a single moment or interview. It's a narrative still unfolding, a life being rewritten. But one thing is clear: Christine Brown is no longer apologizing for wanting love, for needing affection, for demanding that her needs matter too. Her broken sex life with Kody was a symptom, not the cause, of a marriage that had long since withered. And by speaking out, she is turning that pain into purpose, helping others find the strength to rewrite their own endings. Since leaving the marriage and officially separating from Kody in 2021, Christine has been on a journey of rediscovery. She has since remarried, tying the knot with David Woolley in 2023, and by her own accounts, she has found a joy that she once thought was beyond her. Her new relationship has been described as warm, affectionate, and emotionally fulfilling, a stark contrast to the cold distance that marked her final years with Kody. With David, Christine says she feels seen and cherished in ways she never did in her former marriage. The transformation in her spirit is visible. Her posture is lighter, her smile more genuine, her voice more confident. Christine's story is not just about sex or the lack thereof. It is about what intimacy represents: connection, value, recognition, love. It's about the pain of being overlooked and the courage to walk away from a life that no longer aligns with one's sense of self-worth. She is careful not to condemn the concept of plural marriage entirely, acknowledging that it works for some, but makes it clear that it no longer worked for her. The structure that once provided community and spiritual grounding had become, in her case, a source of deep sadness and emotional neglect. Her decision to speak out is not just personal, it's cultural. In a society where women are often expected to endure silently, especially in religious or patriarchal frameworks, Christine's voice is a beacon to others who may feel trapped in relationships that no longer nourish them.